Hello guys, welcome to Solid Motion VFX. So in this one we're gonna look at a workflow I do to have my geometry, my model from Blender, preparing it, UV unwrap it, and then exporting it to Substance Painter, do some texturing in there, and then export the textures back into Blender and plug them in. So that's what we're gonna be looking at today. So just have your model ready. I just made this little, let's call it a sci-fi box, whatever it is. So and I used of course add-ons, because if you're doing any hard surface modeling, then it's worth mentioning that you definitely need two add-ons. I think you know them already: HardOps and Box Cutter. So that will of course be something that you would rely heavily on. It just makes the whole workflow much easier and faster. So I use those two add-ons to make this. I will leave in the description. I will leave some links, because I also use a paid add-on for my UV unwrapping, which is called ZenUV. It has a nice textile density checker, but I also gonna leave a link for a free one. So the free one is this one, called the Textile Density Checker Free. It's really a good tool, and basically what that does, it goes in and look at your how much amount texturing resolution you have on your mesh. So you want to have a uniform resolution all over your scene. So let's dig into it. This is when I click on them, I have my main box here, I have a plate here, I have a plate here, then I have my bottom case here, some piping here, and this little side knot. So the golden rule, there's different ways of course doing this, but the golden rule is that materials in Blender are texture sets in Substance. Okay, just remember that. That's the golden rule. So let's start by UV unwrapping this. So this box here, you can see I have been working non-destructive. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply my modifiers. So quick favorites, smart apply. I'm gonna just do that all over the place. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to look at my wireframe, because I had a mirror modifier on this one, right? So let's go in and do some cleaning up of the mesh. So go into edit mode. So now when I added my modifiers, I have access to the geo. So go in, and then I'm gonna look from the top view, and I'm gonna add a knife here just to make a better mesh. Look there, E, one here, across here. When you're working with booleans, you make these destructive workflows. It's going to destroy your mesh, so you need to have as clean as possible mesh. You can get away with it for most of the time, I would say, actually, but what the people are recommending, if you're actually exporting your scene assets to a game engine, you should either have clean quads, because you know a quad is actually two tris. So if you have clean quads, that should be fine. If not, then you should triangulate it before, because your game engine will go in and look at triangles, or it will go in and triangulate it most of the time. So that will just make it easier. Also, if you export into Substance, if it doesn't work, you can try to triangulate it. If your mesh doesn't seem to have the resolution you want, or you have a lot of distortion and so on. Okay, so now when we have these, let's go in and delete these other. Control X to solve them, we don't need them. Control X, the same with this one. We're just cleaning up a little bit. Let's see what we can do to make it a little bit better. So the back one we want, but not, maybe not this one. Control X. And let's try to leave it as it is. I want to isolate it, and then I want to go into my UV editing. So ZenUV, this is the one I'm using here. Zen UV, and Alt U is the Pi menu for that. So right now we have no UV maps assigned to it, as you see it up here. You can also check it in the UV maps here. It's empty. So what I want to do is, let's see, we want to set seams based on angles. So mark by angle, seams and sharps we're gonna set for this one, and mark by angle. So all the green ones are my seams, and the underlying color you can't see, but that's the blue one, which is my sharp. So if we remove the seams, you can see the sharps here. So just click on show seams again. And the cool thing about this add-on is also it has a little hops integration, so it's gonna work well with Hardops, and they are planning to do a lot of extra things in the future. Okay, so let's go in and add in a checker texture for this one. And because we haven't UV unwrapped it yet, let's go up, Alt U, Zen UV unwrap, and here's the little UV display you get from Hubs. So let's look at our distribution here. We have some distortions here and back, but remember, we're not gonna worry about too much about all the distortions, especially on the back here. Let's make this one actually a seam, mark it, and unwrap. And we'll choose there, unwrap. We're just going and making some small fine adjustments here. We can also get this one, this one, this one, and this one. Mark those as well and unwrap it. We want basically to have as much as UV space filled out as possible. Hello guys, a little message from the future. So I forgot to show you one little but very important things to help you in your UV unwrapping. That's something called stretching. So if we go back to the UV editing layout, and let's just isolate this piece here, then you can see we have this nicely filled UV layout, right? So you can go up to this overlay button here, show overlays, drop down, and this is version 2.92 because it keeps changing placement. I don't know why, but then you have this display stretch. Enable that, then you get these visualization, the coloring. Right now we have based it off angle. You have two options, angle or area, but most times you would use angle, especially when we're talking about hard surf modeling. But its explanation is really simple. The stretching just shows you how much a difference there is between the UV coordinates and the 3D coordinates. Blue means low distortion, while red means high distortion. So you can either choose between the angle or the area. So this greenish, it's okay, it's not bad, but the perfect scenario is to get all of them to be blue. We have these, of course, these stretching because of the areas here. But what you definitely don't want is completely green or especially red. So that was just a quick note from me. Thank you guys. So it already looks much better. Okay, so now let's see what we can do about this space here, right? So let's click on these faces. If we move that over here, maybe scale it up a little bit, like so. And then, by the way, I'm using UV Packmaster. I'm also gonna leave a link for that in the description. I highly recommend that. That has a much more advanced packing algorithm than Blender's own. So because I use that down here when I say packing, you can use this preference. You can see that I already set it to UV Packmaster, and this can automatically do the average of the islands and rotate them. And I have set my texture size to 2K here. So I just want to look at my text right now. So right now if you look at this island here, which is this one, then you go down to textural density, get TD, so you're gonna get the actual value, get TD. So this island here, this face here, it has a textural density of 8.95. If you click on this face here, get TD. You see this one has 7, right? And you can see over here where it is. And if you wanna uniform, then so that's what you would most likely in most cases do. You want to unify them as much as possible. So 7.02 was this one, right? This phase, and this one was 8.95. So look what's gonna happen over in the UV layout when we change. We want these to be equal. So this one has 895. Let's actually take this one and say 895 set TD. Now it's gonna be bigger over here. You see that? So that's how you would do that. And let's go back, actually say 7, and this one 7 as well. So you're just gonna play around, set the pixel density to get a better resolution. Okay, and I'm also gonna link you guys to a really good description about this on the ArtStation. So basically this is how it looks like. You want to have your whole scene should have equal amount of pixel density. So in this case it's 10.24, and as you can see here, look at the UVs. We see these are 1 meter per square, but not this box here. So this is wrong. Everything should be equal sized. So in this long little list here, you're gonna see a much more thorough description how this works, but it's really good reading. So this is basically the optimal scene how you want it. Everything should have the same amount of pixel density, which is 10.24 pixels per centimeter. He explains also why it's important and when it's good to use what approach with some examples. So there's some calculations here depending on what your output is, right? So I'm gonna leave a little link for that in the description as well. So let's see here. Let's go back here and play with these. So this is the front here. Up here, get TD, we have 7.02, so that's good. So let's try to select everything again and hit N, my UV pack master, and say pack. Okay. So you're just gonna play a little around here with the scene, organize things until you have a decent shape, right? So do that and maybe rotate it like so and scale it up. Okay, let's see here. Let's do another pack. This one, get TD 7.04. This is also good. And this one was the front, get TD 7.02. If we say 8 on that and set TD, it's gonna get a little bit bigger. Rotate it. Think of it also like you don't have to have the same texture density all over the place. If you're not gonna see the back here, for example, if that's not gonna be a close-up or similar like that, you don't need that same amount of the texture density. So you can get off by having a much lower and then higher the texture density on the ones you want to close up on, for example. So that's also a little thumb rule. Okay. So we did one last pack here and I am happy for this for now. So let's go back to object mode and let's look at this lower part here. So backslash to isolate that one. And let's see here. Go into edit mode. Go into the front. Just want to do some better. Take the knife mode. I want to do some cleanup here. And let's see here. Let's take K for knife and let's do a cut approximate in the middle. E to do another one. E to do the last one here from the top and all the way down. And enter. Okay. Now we can dissolve these other ones we don't need. Okay. That looks good. Nothing to worry about here. And let's go in and mark by angle. So these are the seams and the sharps. So no seam here, but in the back it's okay actually that we get a seam here because we're not gonna see that. So mark that, and also let's see how that will work out. Unwrap it, and let's add in the checkerboard to look at it, and let's see which one is this face here, right? So that's this one. And what is the textile density? That's a low one, yeah. And if we can get that, okay. So let's see here. Textile density, we set that to approximately 7. Set it, and because it is hooked up to the other ones, it's gonna move the other islands as well. So Control C, and let's just move it over here and rotate it. Maybe scale it up. And this one is this one, so get TD. This one we could actually bump up as well to 7. And again, we're not gonna see this bottom part, so it doesn't matter at all. Set TD, and let's get it up here like so. So for this front part, set TD to 8. So we check everything, and let's do a pack like so. Looks much better now. So get TD. Let's see what it's gonna say. Almost 8 across the board. That's definitely doable. So that one we like. Okay, so we don't have to worry about these piping and this side and this one as well, this little drawing here, because we're gonna use Blender for that. Also the front panel, you can add a logo or a little computer text, something like that. But we do want this panel here to tag along with us to Substance. So basically we want this main box here, we want the lower box here, and then this side knob. Those we want with us, right? And then this one, isolate that, go into edit mode. I don't have anything associated with it, no UV maps. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go down and let's see here. We have to unwrap it first, right? But before we do that, let's mark it, mark by angle, and look at, is this where you want your seams? And we have a big, it's a small knot, and we have a big place here, right? So let's just do that. Unwrap it and assign a texture to it. And this looks fairly decent enough, right? Look at that, it fills it out as good as it can. So UV coverage, I know it's only filling the 43%, but it's a small knot. We're not gonna have a close up on that, so we can definitely live with that. We take this face, get TD, the value 23. What about here? 2302. And the big face here, the big N-gon here, get TD 2302. So that's pretty even all over the place. And this show TD, this is just this value you enter here, TD checker. Right now I have it as 350, right? So whatever is below 350 will be red, whatever is equal to that number will be green, and whatever is over will be blue. So if you took show TD, because all of these numbers are below, we should see red all over the place, which we do. So that's basically just what these two are showing down here, right? And again, if you have an island you need to work more decent on, you can just take this isolate, work on it, and then go back and click the isolate. And overlap islands, if you have any of those, you can also make a quick check on that. It says overlapping not found. Even if you press A, select not found. Okay, so let's see here. We could basically move it up here, scale it up, scale it a little bit down, like so. And let's do another pack. Oops, I forgot to highlight everything and do another pack. Yeah. Okay, so perfect. That's it for this one. So go back, backslash. Now we have the pieces we want, right? So let's just go in and remove our checkers on this one. And remember, you can actually highlight multiple objects, right? And then go into the edit mode. Alt U, and let's remove the checker, like so. Okay, let's go back to layout. So now we UV unwrapped this little piece here, right? So now what we want to do is actually preparing it to getting it out of Blender. So you remember I told you the golden rule: materials in Blender are texture sets in Substance Painter. So there's multiple methods to do this, but I'm just gonna show the easy way. Okay, guys. So let's go and do this. We're just gonna color them. So for this one, let's say we want this to have the same color, right? So give it a material. Let's just, should this be red maybe? Okay. And let's call these naming convention you will give here. We just call this body will be the texture sheets names inside of Substance Painter. Okay, so the body is this main part. So that means whatever materials we put will be uniformly all over this red area. The same with the bottom. Let's give that new. Let's give it a blue color. Okay, so basically we want these materials, these four materials: top panel, side knot, bottom, and body. We want those exported, right? So that's our next step here. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna choose these four: the bottom, the body, the top panel, and the side knot. So now while those are selected, you go into File, Export, and you can either do FBX or OBJ. So let's take this FBX and choose selected objects. We want just the mesh, and we don't want to bake the animation. It's okay on a geometry that we want to apply the modifiers. So let's try with that. If that doesn't work, you can try to disable that and try afterwards by actually applying them in here in Blender, and then go into Substance. Okay, so let's choose a destination where we're gonna leave it. Export. Okay, so next up is Substance Painter. Okay, so in Substance Painter, go up to File, New, or just Control N, and we want to set it to 2K resolution. Don't enable anything here. Auto unwrap, that is still experimental, but leave it as it is. And because Blender's working with OpenGL, so normal map format, change that to OpenGL. And then the template, we're going to use this for now, the PBR metallic roughness. When we're going to export, we're going to set our own template out. So select here, go ahead and choose your file, and hit OK. So here's your file, And just a quick info on Substance Painter. I mean, I'm now no expert in everything here. This is a huge program. So it's just the basic things I'm gonna show you. That was the whole purpose of this tutorial. So to navigate around here, hold the Alt key down, and then the middle mouse button. You can do that to pan around like this. And if you, while you have Alt down still, then on your mouse, if you press and hold down the left mouse button key, then you can swipe around like this, pan around the object, and again middle mouse button, right, like this, and zoom in. Again, you don't have to have press Alt down, you can just scroll back and forward. So to zoom in, you just scroll back, zoom out, scroll upwards, right? So that's the basic on how to navigate in this view here. Then on the left side here, on the environmental, right now you cannot see the HDR. So if you up this environment opacity and also the blurriness, lower that, then you can see the background. You have a different, you have a couple of different environment maps in here. You can switch between those by just clicking on them, and again lower the opacity when you don't wanna see it, right? So while you have those, let's go see here. When you find one you like, then if you wanna change the direction, hold down Shift, and then on with your right mouse button you can change the light direction, right? Okay, so that was just a very quick overview of this environment settings. Let's lower the opacity down again. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do here, this is our shelf. This is where we have all our materials, the brushes, materials, textures, everything is down here. This is the texture sets, and the 4 texture sets we talked about. You see that? That's up here. Body, bottom, side knot, and top panel. So if you click on each of them, you'll see their corresponding UV maps we created here. We created in Blender. So the body, and if you use the eye here, if you click on that, it's just gonna disable the view. The bottom, disable the view for that. Top panel, disable the view for that. So if you used to work in Photoshop, this is gonna be a breeze for you. Okay, so let's start. The first one we're gonna do, actually, it's we're gonna, in our texture set setting, we're gonna bake. This is the workflow. We're gonna bake our mesh maps and set it to, let's just set it to 4K, and we don't need any ID. It's just ID map, because that's another method. If you export it out from Blender, you can use vertex ID coloring. That will, then this will be useful. So anti-aliasing, one that's low as possible, and ambient occlusion, secondary rays, set that to 80, apply to all up here. Curvature, we could leave that as it is. So with all this, we should be good. Bake selected textures. So now it's doing the baking, and you can see each channel here. While it's baking, you have your layer stack up here. So that's what I meant with Photoshop. When you make a layer, you can create these with these functions. You can add new fill layers, paint layers, effect, whatever you want. It's just going to be stacked on top of each other, and it works the same way as in Photoshop. So whatever's the top one is the most visible one. That's always the one that's dominating. Then you have your parameters here for each of the layer you have selected. You can see some multiple options here for that. So for brushes or for effects, for generators, everything will be highlighted over here. And then of course your texture set settings are down here. Okay. Okay, so now it's baked 100%. Now is a good time to look at your mesh to see if anything is broken or not. And this is the part where you have to sometimes play around with whether you should use triangulate or not from Blender. So that really depends on what you're gonna be using it for. Especially if you're gonna put it out for gaming and such, then it's almost a must-have. So with this drop down, we're looking at the material right now. If you go into the different color, you can use base color, roughness, normal maps, then you have the IDs, the ambient occlusion, and so on. We'll be mainly looking at the material here, right? So now just to start up here, what we will be doing first here, let's make a basic material here. In the material, let's look after one called iron. You can search for them here. And let's take the one that's called the iron raw damage. This one, you can either just drop it on the actual object here, or you can just drop it up in the layer stack. And now you're gonna see how that looks like. And I don't like the HDI on this one. Yeah, now it looks much better. And if we just go one step back again, if you go down to Smart Material, if you want just a quick dirty and hey, that's it, let's get out of this business, then you can just take these Smart Materials. Everything we are building up now is actually towards these Smart Materials. So these are built up of layers. So if I choose this steel, change the material and put it on here, this is how it's gonna look like, right? So this is just what we are doing manually right now, but this is already pre-made for you. You can open up the folder, you can see what it has here. So on each layer, for this one, if you click on it, so this is the sharpen, you can see the parameters for that over here. The same with the rust, then the parameters, coloring, everything is out here. And a good troubleshooting when you're working in Substance Painter is just click on the eyeball here to remove, to see which part of the image is this actually impacting, right? Cool. So let's go up and delete this again, and let's just start from the bottom. So iron raw, let's take that one. I'm gonna take this iron raw damage. Okay, so this is our first one, and then with this select, you can go over here to your color if you wanna have other color, maybe a little more brownish, a little bit darker, maybe like so. Okay, and while you have this, if you're seeing some horrible seams, you can also try to play with the UV projection over here. So with the UV projection, while this layer selected, go down to triplanar, and it can distribute a little bit in another projection view. So sometimes that option helps. Okay, but for me this looks good, so I'm gonna keep it at UV for now. Okay. You can play with the scale here as well. Let's say 1.2. 1.2, I think I like that, so I'm gonna leave it like that, and just make it a little bit darker here on the base color, like so. Okay, and now let's go up and add a fill layer, this one. So when you add a fill layer, the color in the fill layer is just gonna dominate the whole thing. So go down here, make it a little bit darker here. So this will be your base color. So let's see, maybe like so. And because we have that iron texture, you can see that displacement when you zoom in here. Okay, so let's keep it like this. And let's see here. Let's go up and select this fill layer and add a white mask. So the difference between white mask and a black mask is that white it adds and blacks that removes or deletes. That's the main takeaway from this. My way of remembering it is saying that if you want the majority of your base color to be visible and only want to remove a few areas, then it's the white mask. So if we add in a white mask, it's gonna keep this base color here, right? If we change that to black mask, it's gonna remove that base color we just put in, and then you can paint on to get some of that back. So we go back to white mask because that's what we want for this one, right? Okay, so then we're gonna, while our fill layer here is selected, we can go up to generators, add a generator. And this is the cool, this is the powerful stuff with Substance Painter. Add a generator, then you have different generators you can do here. If you want to look at the curvatures, metal edge, which is one we can look at now, or add some dirt. So let's add in a metal edge. And we see this, but because it's inverted, we need to go up to this invert button and click on it. So now you see just slightly around the curvatures here, right? So from here you're gonna play a little bit with the wear level, maybe like so. Don't overdo it. And maybe some contrast. If you lower it, it's gonna actually add more visible wear level, but it's gonna be less. It's gonna be more pixelated or blurry. So I just wanna have it a more high contrast, like so. And then you have the grunge amount right here. So how much do you want of that? Look at that nice detailing we have here. And that's all because of our UV unwrapping. Okay. So grunge scale. It can make some other distributions here. But I think a scale of 5 was good for this. Okay, and while we have this fill layer selected here, let's go in and add in a paint layer. And this is again like Photoshop, so whatever you do here with this paint layer selected, it's gonna be changeable, so you can just delete it, remove it, or disable it. So that's why I always use a paint layer when you're doing some changes, right? So with this paint layer, what you're gonna do is make sure that you have your black color selected. So the key is X. If you hit X, look at the ball here, it's gonna change, right? So remember what I told you with white adds and black removes. So let's keep it at black for now. And if we go in here, see we are removing this gray color, so we are introducing that underlying texture. So Control C to go back, and if you hold Control down and then the right mouse button, that's gonna change the size of your brush here, right? So let's go in actually to brushes and choose another one called Dirt 2. This one. Then you have this layout here, and Control right mouse button to make it smaller, like so. And now, if you change it to white, see nothing's. It actually is removing, right? It's removing these areas, and that's basically the whole workflow in Substance. You have to make, a combination where you do some adding and then you remove again. So if we do it like around here, right now you see we're removing, and let's go in and add. See that little, I'm not sure if you can see it, but we're actually adding here now, like so. Also up here, add a little bit here. And if you hold Control down, let's see, and then instead of the right mouse button, use the left mouse button, hold it down, and then if you take your mouse and move it towards yourself, it's gonna rotate. If you move it up, the mouse, while you have Control down and your left mouse button down, it's gonna rotate these, right? So make some slight changes here. And the reason why when I click, I'm getting these like almost faded light areas, right, of this. Or if you want to have it more dark, you're just gonna press your left mouse button down a couple of times, then you get much more these darker areas as you're seeing right now, right? And you can play with the size as well as here. And when you change the size, you're gonna see it's gonna change up here as well as the parameters here. Stroke opacity, you can play with that here. Basically, the same parameters you have here, you will also find over here, right? So looking good so far. So next up, let's add some dirt and rust. So go up to the top again and add a new fill layer, like so. Let's just call this, maybe we call it rust. Okay, so that looks good. So now we want to go in and add in a dirt and rust layer. So go in and add a fill layer. Rename this to dirt, right? Like so. And for this one, let's change the base color to something more brownish, maybe. Like so. I think this is a good starting point. And what we want to do here, we actually want to deactivate some of our channels, the normal and the height. Okay, and the metallic slider, and just make sure that that's all the way down to 0 or whatever you like. And keep my roughness at, let's see here, the roughness, I'm gonna actually bump that up to, because we are dealing with dirt, 0.9, a high number, like so. Okay, so that's good. And again, if you need to change your UV projection, you do that up here. So for this one, let's add in a black mask, like so. Okay, and now you're going to see some cool things. So for here, we're actually going to use smart materials. And let's see. So this is the one. Yeah, that's the one we want. And for this one, just drag it up and put it in your black mask here. Look what you get over the curvatures. You're getting this nice, almost rusty feel around all the curvature. So that looks really, really good. Yeah, look at the details. Okay. So now you have that set up. And let's see here in the mask builder, which is this one. Remember, again, disable each view if you want to see what the different parts actually do, right? So inside the mask builder, that's the one that actually goes in and creates these or give this curvature look here. Okay, so in the mask builder, you can lower, let's see, the level if you want. Let's see here. If I lower this, so we are losing some detail here, right? So I'm gonna keep it at 0.4, like so. And of course, play with it, guys. Play with it and then make it to your own liking, right? Then in the grunge leak, this one, we're gonna do some changes as well. So for this one, right now it's triplanar. What about if we take it to UV projection? Do we like that distribution more? Let's try again from this view. Yeah, I actually like the triplanar more. So I'm gonna keep it like this. It'll almost look like something has spilled on it. Okay. And from here with the grunge leaks, you can play with the balance and the contrast. If you up the balance, it's gonna add much more spill. If you can see that here, I'm not sure if you can see that. And the contrast, it's just gonna make some of the areas more darker. Okay, that looks pretty cool. Now we want to actually go and find some a rust, add some more detail here. So let's see here if we can find one, and this is the one rust fine. Let's just put it up as a top layer, like so. That looks pretty cool. That's actually looks like real rust, right? So what we're gonna do for this one is that we're gonna let me see. Okay, so for this one we're gonna, let's change the color maybe to a little more red, like so. And if you need, you can change the protection again here. So for this one, let's add a black mask, like so, because that's where then we can paint it in as well. And then let's see here, this one, and drag it up to your black mask, and look at that, boom. Now we have some really rust all over the place, right? If it doesn't seem correct to you, if something seems odd, you can go into the mask editor actually, and then in the under these two texture sets, right, you can try to change the triplanar from true to false, and the same with this sorry, with this next texture, invert triplanar here, set it to false, then you get a little bit another distribution here, right? So that's also another way of going with it. And then of course play with the contrast and level. And while we have this, let's go in and add a paint layer here, and let's change this to dirt. Let's go to brushes, right, dirt, maybe 1, 2, yeah, let's try 2. So right now it's on white, and remember white adds, so let's take it to black because it's too much, I think. So for example here it's too much, so I'm gonna remove some of it. Okay, so now I want to show you a little cool thing here also, where you can go in and mask out a portion of the polygons. So if we go up here and this first layer that's created by Substance, you can delete that. That was created on each of these texture sets. There will be each layer actually will be one of those empty layers. So what you do is just click on the first and the last, Control G for group them together, and then just name this like our base metal, like so. And then what you wanna actually do from here is that you wanna add a white mask, like so. So for this white mask, we're gonna use something we haven't seen before, our polygon tool, which is this one, the polygon fill. Click on that, and now you can see all the visible the seams and all the polygons. And then you're gonna choose this UV chunk, and then lower the slider to 0. When you do that, you can just select a face. You can do it over here, the UV map, over here. So now I just clicked on this one, right? And look at the magic. When I clicked on this one, this face here selected, then you just go down and find a material, right? So let's, for example, take glass, maybe this one, glass here, and just put it below your group. So that's how you will go about that. I want to show you one more thing here. I can see we almost hit the 1 hour tutorial time here. Sorry for that, guys, but I just want to cover as much as possible, but only whatever you need to know, right, to get you started. Otherwise, you saw that you can just add these smart materials. But I want to show you how to add decals. So that's something that people really want to have. So adding decals. Choose your layer up here, right? Your first layer. And let's see, open it up. And rust fine. So find your layer, and we want it to be under this rust here. So in this rust here, I'm just gonna go in and add a paint layer, rename it to whatever you want. I'm just gonna go to stamp here, and then make sure in your brushes, let's see here, your brushes, you're at this basic hard brush. Let's open up the size here and go up to alphas. And in alphas, what you would do is just pick any random alpha you want. Let's take this one for example, and just stamp it in. You see, that's pretty cool. And of course you can bring in your own. I'll also take this hand here. Make it a little bit bigger, like so. Or you can bring in your own if you want, of course. So what you would be doing would just be making some in Photoshop, for example. Then just drag it from your folder, drag it and release it here. When you release it here, then it's gonna be released into the shelf. It's gonna pop up with a menu, and you're gonna choose if you have more than one. Hit Control R A to select them all, and then in the drop down on the right side, choose Alpha in the import menu, and then choose Project at the bottom. You also have text. I mean, right now I know we are abusing it completely, but we're just learning here, right? So put this on, and maybe this one here. Of course we are exaggerating now, but this is just to show you how these awesome stamps they work. But I think you get the picture here, right? So put in your own stuff here. Make sure that this doesn't have a perfect alpha behind it, but when you make them inside of Photoshop or whatever software you use, just make sure that you have a transparent background behind. So that's how you do with the stamps, okay? And of course you can just go in and because we have it inside of this layer called stamp, you can just remove them again by clicking this eyeball here. So that will be how you put on stamps or decals. So that's pretty cool feature. Okay, so what we wanna do now is we wanna have this same layout on the top panel and on this side node here, and also at the bottom, we can change that, the coloring for that. So with this body selected, just collapse everything here. We don't need the glass, so make sure you check this folder here, right click it and just say copy layers, then go up to your top panel. Now you have this one selected, right click at the gray space here, paste layers, and now that one's been integrated as well. Do you see that? Really nice. Okay, now the same thing with the side knot, paste layers, and the same with the bottom here, paste layers. So now you have this little ugly box here, and I want this, the bottom here, I want that actually to have another base color here. So maybe go down here and let's see, the base color, make that a little bit darker than the rest. Before we just clean up here or ready to export, look at that all the rust. You remember what I talked about? If you need to go in and do some troubleshooting, just disable the eyeball one at a time to see which layer is like this one. There's a lot of rust in here, so open this one, and we want to remove some of that, right? So what we're gonna do in here is that we're gonna add in a paint layer. Let's just call it remove, like so. We just want to go to brushes, this one, and right now it's on white, so click X to make it black and delete some of it again. But we don't want this round perfect shape, so remember, use some of the already pre-existing brushes like dirt. Let's take dirt 3 for example. Use this to remove some of this rust all over the place. Just do some cleanup here. That looks pretty cool so far. So try to change a couple of the different views here if you want that, and again change it. This actually looks really good. Okay, let's go up here and we can lower the opacity again if we want. Okay, so that was the workflow up to this point, guys. I hope you learned something inside Substance Painter. There's a lot more to it. So right now, let's go in and export these textures, right? So what we want to do is we're gonna go up to File and then Export Textures. Okay, start with choosing a suitable place. So we need to set up our own little preset here, and this preset you can actually save it and then use it every time you want to do an export from here to Blender. Leave it these, you can leave these for now as it is. PNG is a really good format to work with. So let's see here. These are these 4 texture sets we will be exporting. So go over to your output templates. I have this one already called Blender Export. Right, so to start creating a new one, you will go into the plus sign, and what you will be doing in here is that we're gonna add some channels here, and then whatever maps you want inside Blender, you need to of course assign them from in here. So for the first one, we'll be using an RGB channel, and we're gonna be using a base color. So take the base color, drag it over in the RGB, and then choose RGB as well. Then you have this setup here, right? And you're gonna, the naming convention is really important, so Blender knows it. If you are using Node Wrangler, you want to do the automatic setup, then you have to follow the correct naming convention. So start by deleting this one, and then we add in our mesh with underscore, and then you're gonna add a texture set. Hopefully I didn't say shit. Texture shit. Oh man, texture set, and then here you're gonna write the name. So base color. Now you have your first one, right? So it's pretty important that you write exactly like here, base color. So the last name is really important. Now we're gonna use a gray color for the next one, and this will be like the metallic. So where do we have that? Metallic. Put it up here, and then choose of course gray channel, and you're gonna do exactly the same naming convention, just write in metallic instead. Metallic, like so. And so for the normal map, you're gonna use one more RGB for this one, and then you're gonna go here to the normal OpenGL, add that in here, and then choose RGB channels, naming convention. This one is going to be called normal as such. So basically, guys, I just want to show you mine setup. So what you're gonna do is it, my Blend export, I have these base color, metallic, roughness, normal, and height. So these are the ones I use, and I call them Blend export. When you have this setup ready, 5 output maps will be exported. Then you can see in here in your list of exports, I have these ones set up right now, and I set them to 2K. But in your settings, when you're ready, let's see here, for the body size output, you can change it here to 4K if you want, and then include all. If you go down to bottom, 4K, side knot, 4K. I mean 8K is just overkill, right? I think even this 4K would be overkill for what we are trying to do here. So 4K. So now when you have all that set up and ready, you're gonna make sure that out in your main output here, that your output template, change that to your newly created Blender export, this one, and leave the default setting here. size based on each texture set size. Yeah, but we have already visible set that in here. You can set it all instead of going in individually like I did. Just go in here and set 4K. You can see it's 4K everything. So when you have all this ready, it's gonna export 20 texture sets. Then you're ready to do the export and you're done with Substance Painter. Congratulations for staying so far. Thank you guys. Export. See you in Blender. Okay, so back in Blender here to our little box here. Then we're gonna put in our texture sets, right? So go over to your shading, and in here let's highlight the main body here. And remember, you can use the node wrangler if you have that set up ready. Then you should be able just to Control-Shift-G and then choose your different maps and then just choose Principled Texture Set out. But to be honest, I'm not sure why that doesn't work for me right now, so I have to do it individually. Otherwise, if it works, what you would do is that choose your main body here, then go into your output file folder where you save your maps, and then you will start with your body, which is this here. So choose base color, height, metallic, normal, and roughness. You just select these and choose Principled Texture Setup, and it should work, but it didn't. I'm not sure why. Yeah, okay. So go into Control T. We'll just do them the old-fashioned way. Okay, open up, and I know I'm gonna use the base color, so I want the hideout, the metallic, the normal, and of course the roughness. And for this one, I'm gonna keep the base color, right? So now we have the base color in here, and roughness here. Change all these other maps to non-color because they're not contributing factors, and plug it into the roughness. And also remember your vector mapping here for each one of the maps. I'm just gonna collapse them with this little the height. Actually, I don't need that. So the metallic, again, non-color, color up to metallic, and remember vector to this one. And then of course the normal, vector to vector, non-color data, and then add in a normal map and just plug the color into the color and the normal to normal, and there you have it. That looks pretty good. So basically this setup I just showed you, you're gonna do that for the rest of the boxes, so the top panel, the side node here, and the bottom, right? So I'm just gonna quickly do that. Alright guys, so I plugged in all my maps here. Let's go back to the layout, and we can disable the wireframe view. And this is what we end up with here in Blender. So as you can see, the textures and the spilling, everything we set up are looking really good. Of course, you can need just to do some coloring on the rest here, but that's the main workflow from Blender to Substance Painter, and bring it back again with these highly textures here. Let's okay guys, so I just did some extra decaling from KitOps, made some textures on this piping, put in some emission nodes on these three faces, and enable some screen space reflections, ambient occlusion, and so on. So, and this is just Eve, right? So with cycles you can get a much more realistic render if you want that, but I'm quite happy with this, how this turned out. Okay guys, thank you for watching. This is my final output. I'm not gonna go more into this. Tutorial has already been over 1 hour. So, but I hope you learned something. The takeaway from this is that remember in Blender that your materials are texture sets in Substance Painter, right? So that's the main focus. Do a good UV unwrapping and then you should not be in trouble inside a Substance Painter. So definitely spend some time on the UV unwrapping. And this is just Eve we're looking at right now. So I just went in and added some more decal up here, texture this pipe here with the kit ups, and also added some emissions to the free faces here for this panel. So I'm not sure even what this is, but it looks pretty cool. I hope you learned something definitely for this one, and please subscribe to support my channel and leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you guys. Bye.